Hi, all. We'll wait just a few minutes for everyone to join, and then we'll get started.
Jan, you're muted.
All right. Welcome, everyone. And I wanted to get started and thank the Michigan 2030 districts for pulling this presentation together. We're going to be looking at options for on-site solar, whether it's investor-owned or owner-owned for houses of worship and nonprofits, and also looking at how to access the IRA direct pay funding. The Michigan 2030 districts include Grand Rapids, Detroit, Ann Arbor, Washtenaw, and the emerging district Lansing. And today we're just going to give a couple introductory remarks. And first of all, I want to thank Murray Rosenthal and the Ann Arbor Washtenaw 2030 District House of Worship and Nonprofit Group for opening up their one of their meetings to include people from across the state. And really thank you for that generosity. Also, thank you. We have the 2030 districts have statewide supporters, and these are folks that support all of the districts at different levels. And thank you, because without our professional stakeholder support, we wouldn't be able to do all the things that we do. I just want folks to save the date for the Ann Arbor Washtenaw 2030 district. We're going to have our annual summit at Washtenaw Intermediate School District on June 26th. We'll have workshops for all the different building types, as well as food and some networking and a few awards. So a short program with lots of digging in during the workshops. And with that, I'd like to introduce Ali Bashuri from the Grand Rapids 2030 district.
Hey everybody, my name is Ali Bashuri. I am the communications manager with the Grand Rapids 2030 district. I just have a few announcements to make today of some events that are happening with our district. First and foremost, we have our Michigan Energy Summit coming up on May 8th. We're really excited to celebrate 10 years and everything that goes along with that. The summit is a full-day conference. It will be held at the JW Marriott in Grand Rapids. The event features a Michigan Battle of the Buildings award ceremony for the 2023 biggest losers, where they will be awarded. It also includes a keynote address by Brenna S. Walraven, President and CEO of Corporate Sustainability Strategies, an appearance by City of Grand Rapids Mayor Bliss, breakout sessions, tours, and will conclude in the happy hour. I have a few links for these that I'll send in the chat here for tickets and whatnot for the rest of these announcements. The next thing that we have coming up before the Energy Summit is on April 12th. It is our Embodied Carbon 101 webinar, part of our Healthy Building webinar series. We're really excited about that, and I can send a link with more information in the chat as well. And then finally, probably the thing we're most excited about, we have our emerging Lansing 2030 district. Currently, our visionary partners, the Lansing Board of Water and Light, Eagle, and the City of Lansing are having planning meetings. So keep an eye out for further information. We will be posting some updates on our Grand Rapids 2030 page, and I'll post the link for that as well. To stay up to date for all of these events and all of these updates and information, you can also sign up for our newsletter, which I'll put in the chat as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to message me or follow any of those links, and you can reach out to our team. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to introduce Murray Rosenthal, and he is our board president of the Ann Arbor Washtenaw 2030 district, and also coordinates our House of Worship and nonprofit group. And Murray, I'll hand it over to you to introduce Prasad, our speaker.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hey, we just closed on our new house yesterday, and I'm using the only piece of furniture that's in it right now, which is a card table and 2 card table chairs. And we're sitting in our sunroom. This sunroom reminds us all that we should be using solar. Now, yesterday when we closed, my real estate agent told us that people in Florida are losing their home insurance because they have so many hurricanes there that insurers are not willing to insure the houses near the coastal areas. So climate change is really important, and it's really climate volatility, because sometimes it gets really cold like it is today in Michigan. So now I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, Prasad Gulapalli. Prasad is the president of Srinergy, a global solar energy development company with design and development capabilities, providing turnkey smart solar energy solutions for commercial, industrial, and residential customers. In March 2010, Prasad founded Srinergy with a passion and vision for creating socially responsible individuals through implementing solar projects and promoting solar energy throughout his community, Michigan and beyond. Prasad started the business by installing a solar system on his home and has carved out a specialty niche with the industry since its founding. Srinergy's success has much to do with the 25 years of experience Prasad brought, working in a variety of industries, including energy, information technology, automotive, and manufacturing. Srinergy has expanded outside of Michigan into other markets within the US and beyond, including the Caribbean islands and India. Prasad has formed and developed strategic partnerships with each of these regions, forming successful sales and installation teams in a collaborative effort to promote and implement solar panels at the local level. Go ahead, Prasad.
Thanks for that introduction, Maria. And first of all, appreciate all the attendees who are joining. Shows the lot of passion and interest, especially with the House of Worships, which is an important organization within the communities. And I'm really glad to see quite an attendance here. So with that, again, thanks to Jan and Murray and the rest of the 2030 district for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to have this session more of an interactive session Since you already know most of the things about the solar, but I'll just touch upon high-level things. But I like to keep the session very interactive so that we can kind of learn from each other in terms of what you're looking for and what's out there as what we have seen being in this industry this long. So it helps each other in terms of this crisis that what Murray is talking about. So this climate change is real. So hopefully we'll all put our own effort, in terms of having a positive impact to the things that are changing, beyond our control. So with that, let me share my screen.
All right, and I forgot to add that it is set up in a webinar format. So folks, you're welcome to use the Q&A and type in questions. And after each sort of section, Prasad will stop and we'll ask questions. And if you raise your hand and you want to, rather than typing in a question, if you raise your hand, I can unmute you, and that way we can have a conversation. So thanks.
Thanks, Jen, for that. Yeah. Okay. So from an agenda perspective, I want to just touch up on solar benefits, which is something I think most of you know about going solar, what that means to the organization, and then about the company, and then the tax incentives. And then the most important thing I want to spend time is on the latest Inflation Reduction Act provisions from the direct pay, which is, I think, is the very interesting change in the policy matters. So I want to really spend time there. From going solar, as you all know, it's all clean energy. When you compare with the coal, if coal is 100%, solar is not like a 0% clean energy, but it's actually better than coal in terms of using the resources wise. And reduction in the electricity cost is another second benefit of going solar. And another most important thing that we are seeing being in the global market, one lesson learned from past, whatever, the last 4 or 5 years for us as a company is things that happened in Puerto Rico, right? With the hurricane, people have lost their power, and they had solar systems, some of them, but unfortunately the grid being, not accessible, the entire investment that they made in the solar is also not accessible to them. So I think this is another important element of the solar. Solar by itself, without a battery, is also another challenge. That's something that we in Michigan should start looking into. That's the emergency preparedness aspect of it. So battery is another key component that needs to kind of tie with the solar for that. Of course, you all know that it also helps in reducing your carbon footprint in terms of the organizational objective. And the last one is promoting the sustainability within the community that you're all in. Any questions? I'm not sure. Is anything that I should stop in between? Any chat? I should, Jan? Or I think let's move for the next.
Keep going.
Yeah. So about us, I think Maurice already did an introduction. We started in 2010. Just to add to that story, when I started the business, which is in 2010, the city that I'm living in, they don't even have the experience on what the solar is. So it took a while for me to set up a solar system at my home, which is the first client or a customer, as part of the company that I started. So that is how the journey has begun. And it's my own 401k that I borrowed the money and I started the business. So that I am kind of want to live by example, and that's how I started the business. Today, I'm very happy to say that now we are in different markets within states, regions within US, and we are in the island, Puerto Rico, and we are expanding into Virgin Islands, and also we're doing business in India. And when it comes to the entire project development, we do end-to-end, all the design, engineering, working with the local jurisdiction in terms of getting the permits for installation, and the local utility company, DTE consumers, and small co-ops that we have across Michigan. So we all internally, we manage all of it, all the way to installation and any future support and maintenance that is required. And one other thing I want to add to this is this entire solar industry is very much a third-party finance-driven, because heavy CapEx from a cost of solar. So that's another element that I want to bring to this discussion, and I hope if there will be some questions around that. But that's a financial mechanism. It's very mature in this solar industry, where it's like a power purchase agreement where you don't have to invest the money, and there are third-party investors who are really interested in leveraging the tax benefits and giving the benefit to the nonprofits. So it's a very kind of a win-win financial model. I'd like to spend some time if there are any questions on that one, which is another important element I want to bring to the session here, webinar. And as a company, we do solar PV charging stations. And another important thing that we are coming across is most of the organizations or companies that we are working with has a roof replacement, right? Because the solar panels are 25 plus years of life, like a roof. That's another important element that happening, within our projects is the roof replacement. That is something that we are also helping the organizations, in terms of the new roof that they can have as part of the installation. And the financing is the one that I touched upon. And the revenue sharing is the model that, especially with the EV charging stations, that is something that we are started deploying from this year as part of this IRA Inflation Reduction Act, that there are tax benefits, but we are deploying that as a profit sharing revenue with the organizations where we are installing solar. So that's about us. I want to bring this.
Prasad, do you want to, we do have one question here, talking about, I'm wondering about costs for a system around 30 kilowatts. How much would I expect to pay per watt? So what are some of the, if you can talk a little bit about,
Sure.
What makes things more expensive, less expensive, what the range is. So if people are trying to budget, right, how they should go about that.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. So let me just give you some history, right? In 2010, a 10 kilowatt system used to be around $45,000 to $50,000. So that's how I started off. I have a 10 kW system, right? Now, today, the same 10 to 20 kilowatt system is around $2.50, is a good number to be at from where the cost that includes everything, right? The design, engineering, all the permits and the cost of interconnection, everything is all bundled into that turnkey cost. If the systems are going a little bigger, we do projects even beyond 20, 30 kW system, maybe even 100, 200. We are even at $1.75. And if you are like a megawatt project, I know some of the organizations may not have that kind of a requirement from energy-wise, but we are even around $1.35 to $1.45 range, $1.35 to $1.45 in different markets. So that's a kind of a range from a cost-wise. So whenever you're working with any installer in your own community, the number to be around for the roof size that most of the house of worships, around 20 to 50 kilowatt system, and staying around 2 to 225 is actually a good number. That is something that even I want to touch upon, this group by. But anyway, so that's the answer to the question. I hope I answered that.
Yeah, I think one thing too to for folks to be aware of is that with the clean energy, the clean energy legislation. Now you can install up to 110% of your annual use, electric use, and up to 550 kilowatt system. So that's a huge, it's a large increase from what a lot of, especially congregations, were restricted to how much, in schools, larger facilities were restricted to how much they could actually install. This is in the DTE area and also in consumers, because this was a statewide legislation. So that's a big deal if you have a larger load, that you can now actually install a larger unit. Prasad, do you want to maybe back up a little bit before we get into the group buy and talk a little bit about the process for, accessing that direct pay? Kind of like, I think you have to reserve funding and, kind of how you go
Sure.
through that. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me get to the direct pay.
Yeah.
We'll touch upon this group buy in the end.
Yeah, that's great.
What I want to also bring to your attention is this tax incentives, the base credit, and the adders or the bonus. Right. This is another important section in terms of what we have with this latest Inflation Reduction Act. Right. So right now, right off the bat, for every project, for every $100,000, you have a 30% as a base credit, which is at the $30,000 is what you have as a income tax credit, right? Beyond that, if there's any domestic content in the project, like panels made being in US, which is the major one, the US manufacturing is just getting started. So if there's any other made in US material that we are using, that's another additional 10%. And the one Jan's bringing up is this community-based project. If there's anything at a community level that's happening, an organization working towards that, there's another additional 10%. So these are the benefits in addition to the base 30%. And if you see the low income is another section here. If there are projects based on the census tracts, if there's a project within a qualified low income location, you have that another additional 10 to 20% based on the census tracts. So when you look at this data here, the low number is 30, and it will go all the way to almost 60% here. So, but again, not everything is viable, but at least just to give you an idea of the range here. So that's the benefit there. Now, when it comes to the direct pay, which is where I want to spend time, is IRS, actually the ruling, they just published recently, like a few weeks ago. When it comes to the eligibility, their tax-exempt organizations are all eligible now, which is a great news in terms of this direct pay option. And there are two major options that are available. One is called elective pay, where you can request for the entire amount to be directly paid to your organization once the project is fully commissioned and installed. And another one is called a transfer. So you can transfer it to all 100%, or you can transfer it a percentage to the parties that are helping in building the project. So let's say if we come in and then do the project, you can allocate that amount to an installer or someone who is helping in financing or doing the project. And the most important here to get the money is the requirement is there is the entire paper trail process of claiming, right? So one is it has to be a qualified project process for claiming. That means it could be a solar or EV or a wind or something, which has to be a clean energy project. And as part of the process, you also need to make sure which year you're trying to claim this credit. That's another second important step. And the project must be installed before registration number will be issued. So that means it has to be completely commissioned, and then you have to go through the registration process, and you have a number that you will be allocated as part of the project itself by the IRS. So once you are complete with all the pre-filling registration with the IRS, that means they're going to review on the back end, and then all the eligibility requirements once they go through all the checklist, and that includes all the bonus if there's anything that you are claiming, like 10% for a low income or any community-based project, whether it's a 30% or 40, 60, whatever. So all those elements will be checked back within the IRS, and once that checkpoint is done, when you're filing the returns, and that's when the payment option, you can say, these are the options that I like to have, either paid directly to the installer that working on a project, or it's you, the organization, that the money should come to you. So those are the process steps there. And I have some links in this presentation that, there's tons of information out there. So I have some links for, you guys can take a look at it. I've attached some publications and also the pre-filling registration tools and things like that. So if there's any questions offline, also we can help you with that. But there's a lot of information out there with the IRS regarding this. So that's the direct pay. Okay. Yeah. Any questions on this?
Yes, we do have a direct pay question, and I'm trying to. Okay, does direct pay allow for the rebate to be issued when the project is completed, or does the organization have to wait until filing a tax return the next year?
It has to be complete, the project, yeah.
And so this it gets into that transferability, where if you're having a contractor do it and you don't have the money, to pay, it's a way of financing, right? If you transfer that credit, some people may be up for that, some contractors may not.
Right. Yeah. So if it's $100,000 project, and you can work with the contractor to say that you will have this 30,000 coming in after the project is fully commissioned. Let me define what a project commissioning means. Being here in this industry this long, this whole definition is kind of very subjective, right? From an IRS perspective, a project is fully commissioned once we have the city permits, green tag from the city saying that the project has met the local jurisdiction. And the second and most important thing, most of the customers missing is this: utility companies, whether it's a DT or consumers, they have to give a parallel operating agreement. So they come, they verify the system, and then they take like a week or 2 weeks or sometimes whatever. That's very subjective there. It will come back as a document. It's called a parallel operating agreement. That is the most important document to say that project is fully commissioned. Without that document, anything else that happens with an IRS is a pre-commit. So make sure you have that POA in terms of the document. It's a very important one. I've seen a lot of folks, when we are talking to where they're already working with another installers, kind of realize that that's the missing information. But that's the one important thing to keep in mind.
Okay, any other questions on the on accessing the payments? Okay. All right. We're moving on.
Yeah. So the only other thing that I want to bring to the group's attention is we are currently working with the City of Ann Arbor from a residential perspective, this group buy where if a residential project is say around $3, which is usually like a standard industry standard as a cost across Michigan. Now with the group buy, there's a significant drop anywhere from 5 to 15% based on how many are signing up within that time frame, right? So something similar, we want to extend this to the 2030 district members in the House of Worship is what we are trying to do this year. What that means is a $2.50 or $2.25 system will be 20 to 25% less. So it will be anywhere from 185 to 2, whatever those numbers are. But we are trying to see how we can bring this cost down through an economy of scale, procurement, and deployment. That is something that we are really interested in and try to help the House of Worships and any organization within the district in terms of this discount approach. So what that means from a process-wise is just because we are trying to have this deployment at such an aggressive discount numbers, if someone is showing interest, we may not be installing it right away. So we need a certain number so that we can buy the material in containers and whatever this behind the scene processes we have, we can optimize the cost and pass on those benefits. So that's what we're trying to do. And we want to be less than $2 objectively, from a system deployment wise. And that's what we are working towards. Okay, that's the only last one I think I have. Yeah.
Oh, great. So basically what you're doing is it's sort of an open invitation to folks that are interested. And do you want to go through what the steps would be? I mean, are they committed, or do you do a feasibility kind of walk through if someone's interested, what the process is looks like in your mind?
Right. Yeah. Actually, Jen, thanks for the question. So, like the way I said, we need this group to manage this economy of scale elements, right? The first step is if there's an interest, we need the electricity bills for the 12 months. Once we have those bills, we'll come up with what the system size is, how many panels can go up on the roof. All the solar feasibility studies we'll do at no cost to the organizations. We'll have a preliminary designs to kind of showcase to say how the project's going to look, both from the group buy volume standpoint, like in terms of how many panels that we might need to buy or manage that. And then also on the other side, what would the cost be, whether it's going to be $2 or $175 or whatever those numbers are, so we can kind of come up with the number. So the first step is an interest to state that, yes, we are interested in this, and then we'll maintain some kind of a Excel sheet to say, here is the list of organizations that are showing interest. And we'll put a certain time frame to that, maybe a 60 days or 90 days, and then collect the data and then consolidate and then come up with a number to say, here is what we can be for this group one in this window of whatever the duration at a certain cost. So that's what we're thinking of deploying it as. And all we need to get started is just the electricity bill. Once we have it, we can do most of this analysis through the tools that we have in-house. And if there's any issues that come up, then we might have my install team to come to your facility, check your electrical systems, or like the roof issues. That's another important thing. If there's any roof upgrades to be done, that's something that needs to be also part of this process. I mean, we just need to figure out how to manage those roof costs in the overall cost of the project too.
Did you want to talk about, you had mentioned possibly rolling in EV charging with these projects?
Yes. So every solar project, every nonprofit or a house of worship, we are trying to deploy minimum 2 level 2 stations. And if the size of the project is above around 50 kW and above, we are planning on deploying 4 stations. So as part of this EV station deployment is a revenue share, right? So whoever is charging at the stations, we might come up with a number, say 35 cents or 39 cents or whatever the number is, cost per kilowatt of charge. And that revenue that comes in after all the expenses, you can share the revenue between the organization and the host, we call it, and then us. And all the maintenance, everything will be all managed by us. And these are all RFID and Wi-Fi enabled systems. And once we install these systems, it will be accessible through a bigger network where anyone can come in and use these stations also. In addition, not only just the members, because now it will become part of the bigger portfolio as part of this deployment. So it's like today, if you have an electric vehicle, you know where the stations are. So these stations will also be part of the same network that will be accessible. And there's no cost for these stations. It's not going to be added to the solar anything. It's just totally outside those cost line items.
Prasad, there was also a question about battery backup. I know the $2 watt does not include battery backup. Do you want to talk a little bit about storage and how you work that into a project?
Sure. Yeah. So again, what we have seen is for batteries are expensive right now as we stand, which is like my example. In 2010, a 10 kilowatt system is $45,000 to $50,000. Now it's like $25,000 to $30,000, right? So the batteries today at that cost curve, it's still not come to a point of what the price, the way how we see it from a payback wise, right? For every 10 kWh storage, the standard cost between multiple manufacturers like Tesla, Enphase, and even have LG. There are at least 4 or 5 manufacturers. They're all around $1,500 to $1,750 as a cost, from a battery wise. So that's another additional cost. Just because the cost of battery is high, our recommendation is to plan the essential loads or the requirements of the organization, just because it's such an expensive line item from a deployment wise. So the modular architecture is the way to go. So start with the 10, 20 kWh system, and then add another 10, 20 in future. So because of the cost line items. So I think the emergency preparedness with whatever this critical load planning is the most important step in terms of making sure you have at least the basic things are running, like the routers, refrigerator in the kitchen, and the lights and then maybe exterior lights, things like that. And the second thing is how many hours per day and how many days you want to have a backup is also another important step to make sure that's part of the planning, because most of this battery backup has a secondary unit you'll have a separate control panel. The loads will be shifted from your main panel to this control panel so that you can efficiently manage those essential loads, when the power goes off. You don't have access to the power. So there's a lot of planning needs to be done because the cost is high. Hopefully 5 years, 10 years from now, maybe we can run the entire organization on battery storage, but we're not there yet.
Okay, let's see, we have a hand raised. Let me find out. Tim, go ahead.
Oh,
Hi, Tim.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, thanks. Just a quick question on the earlier comments about the EV charging station.
Mhm.
If, for example, a house of worship wanted not to charge during like service times, is that a possibility for that? Or is it just basically allowing them to have a charging station at the and passing on the cost to whoever uses it? Is there
Yeah,
a flexibility in terms of
right.
setting
Yeah,
the times when it's being charged or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
I mean, like
I
money
think-
charge, not electricity charge.
Right. Yeah. I think, good question, Tim. Yeah, you can control when you want the charging station accessible, right? So that feature exists in the system. That's number one. Actually, that also adds to the battery also, right? You can even manage the time of use also. You don't want, if you have installed a battery at your organization, and if somebody is trying to charge, then you're going to really drain the whole battery, right? So you can control a lot of things with this. Yeah. My recommendation would be to charge at a point like where the cost of energy is, low with the latest, I think you all know, like a time of use is another one that Michigan has adopted now.
So what you're saying is, if, for example, like a church or synagogue has services from 11 to 1 o'clock,
Mhm.
they could say, okay, during this time, you can park and get your car charged while you're in the building, and there won't be a bill for that. That's just
Right.
okay. All right, great. Thanks. That's probably works
Yeah.
really well. And then in the days where the building's not in use and someone needs to
Mhm.
stop by and fill up the card, and they could pay
Right.
for that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have some questions? Dan, Nowitzki, I think it's Nowitzki. Did you get did Prasad answer in enough detail about the time gap for the direct pay? Because it is based on a filing process. So there is a delay in that funding. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Dan.
So then to clarify, let's say a project is commissioned with the paperwork in June. Can the organization submit at that time to get the credit, within a few weeks, or do they have to wait until the end of the calendar year to file a tax return?
Yes. It's very much of a tax return driven timeline, right? I don't know, did I capture that? It's based off of the tax year, right? So when you're filing the returns, or if sometimes, if you're taking an extension, right? So it all at that point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I have heard, and this is, Prasad, where the transfer could benefit if you had that in the agreement, or I've also heard, and I don't know if they've come out with it or not, but Michigan Saves was trying to provide sort of a gap loan for especially for nonprofits and low income projects. But I have not heard if that has happened yet.
Yeah, it's that's actually a good point, man. So whether it's a Michigan Saves as a third party finance coming in and saying, I'm okay for me to get this money. Say, let's say you do the project now, right? So this year, the money might come in April, or whatever, or if there's no extension on the tax filing. So if Michigan says I'm okay, so then they will have the money in 2025. Same applies to somebody like us as an installer, right? So you have those options, in terms of working with whoever either funding the project from a financing wise, or you have your own money and working with an installer and you don't have all the money, you can get like 70% of the money.
Yeah, and while we're on financing, I think a lot of this group is probably Murray's congregation did a virtual, they kind of did their own PPA to
okay.
raise
Great.
the money and so forth. There are, you can pay for it outright, right? And then Prasad, you also have financing available through a
Right.
PPA.
Right. Actually, the two things here, right? So the same group buy strategy, we are planning to deploy in two ways. One, if congregation or house of worship or any nonprofit in the district decides to say, okay, we want to own this and we will manage our own money, that's one option, self-funding. The second one is a power purchase agreement. As part of this group buy, what we are also doing is, instead of the PPA rate being around 12 cents or 11 cents or whatever, usually most of the PPA will be around 20 to 30% less than the utility costs from most of the project developers, right? I mean, so that's like another benchmark or a standard. Make sure that if someone is offering a PPA, you want to look at that commitment of 25 years to see that you are in that threshold. So here, what we are doing is, if there is a group buy, instead of being at that number, we are also trying to see what can be done with this group buy to be around, say, 10 cents or even less than 10, if viable. So that's two things we are focusing on in the group buy. So it can be ownership through self-funding, and the second one is a power purchase agreement from somebody like us, where we invest money and leverage the tax aspect, income, ITC, and depreciation. Sorry, that's another important thing, depreciation, right? In this direct pay, the nonprofit is actually missing the opportunity of the depreciation, right? You can't depreciate the asset in the books. So all you're getting is a 30% off the total project cost. But the depreciation aspect is kind of it's not happening just because of the ownership structure. But when it comes to the PPA, somebody like us as an investor, we leverage both the ITC, a tax credit, plus the depreciation. So that's why the PPAs are very aggressive in terms of the cost per kilowatt hour from a contractual obligation standpoint. Another element of the PPA is when you're working with any investor or developers, ask for a buyback option, right? Again, the standard there is the investor has to own the asset for 6 years, but he can request for a buyback option maybe at 7th year or 10 or 15, or based on what that fair market value the investor is showing you, in terms of the options. For us, we are not just an installer, like an installation company, right? So we are as a developer, we manage the money, we do everything. So we have quite an experience in structuring that also. So there are options to purchase at a FMV in the future, dates.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So yes, so this group buy is open. And do you want people just to email you directly if they're interested? And
Yes.
okay,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
That will be a starting point, and we'll share the email. We are, setting up for 2030 district as a separate dedicated email, so that we capture the interest, and then, we can start the consolidation, with some timeline and a duration.
okay, all right, great. We have just a few minutes left. Any other questions for folks? Oh, I have a question about the data that you need for the installation for the energy data. Do you want, is it just monthly energy data, or do you need it broken down more than that?
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think most of the bills, even if we get the 1 month's bill, we should see a graph, right? I mean, for the last 12 months of consumption. The most important thing is for us, we need a 12 months. The reason is, like what Jan's pointed out, the system it will be designed based on the last 12 months of consumption times 110%, right? So that's where the bill requirement is. So I think 12 months data is important. If you don't have, if you have it in an Excel sheet, it's fine with us. Or if you have a one bill, the latest one, if shows a graph on the consumption, that's also fine with us. Okay. But if those two are not there, but we need then the last 12 months of the bill, it will be helpful. So we are kind of right sizing the system.
Yeah, so if anyone's a benchmarking with the Ann Arbor Washtenaw 2030 district, we can provide that information to Prasad. I don't know, Allie, if you guys are if you're connected with the data hub or whatever, but certainly those in Ann Arbor, and if you're benchmarking with Detroit as well, Detroit can provide that information, and it's a little easier than having to dig up all your bills. So, all right. Any final questions? Murray, have we set another meeting for our House of Worship nonprofit groups yet?
Yeah, it should be the third Wednesday in May.
Okay.
If that doesn't conflict with anything, but
It should be good. All right. Ellie, any last words from Grand Rapids?
Nope, no further words from us. I'll send you those links, Jan, and we'll have that for everyone.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you.
All right. And as I noted, we'll be sending everyone our link to the recording and also the presentation, and with Allie's links, and you can look for that probably tomorrow. All right. Great.
Thank you.
With that.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time, and looking forward to solarizing all the attendees organizations here. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining us, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.